Oh yes, you clicked on this one because you want to know if I agree with everyone else or I have the unpopular opinion. So let's talk about The Dark Knight. It has been a year since the Batman has emerged as the watchful guardian of Gotham, as he sets out to dismantle the remaining criminal organizations that plague the streets with the help of Lieutenant Jim Gordon and District Attorney Harvey Dent. And while this partnership proves to be effective, they soon find themselves prey to a reign of chaos unleashed by this emerging criminal mastermind known as the Joker. But before I properly start with my review for The Dark Knight, I want you to start the conversation about it in the comments below. Throw all your thoughts about it, including spoilers. This review, we will talk about everything The Dark Knight, because it has been 14 years since it was released. And of course, if you like movies and TV, this is the place to be, so consider clicking that subscribe button so you don't miss any future conversation on your favorite movies and TV. I just recently reviewed Batman Begins and am now reviewing The Dark Knight, and will be reviewing The Dark Knight Rises in anticipation for The Batman, so make sure you are tuned in for all of those. And this, in many regards, is the birth of a legend. Not the Batman, but this is the film that made Christopher Nolan a household name. He had become a big name amongst Hollywood circles and hardcore movie fans with his early movies including Memento, Insomnia, and then the comic book genre was reinvigorated and re-energized with his take on Batman with Batman Begins. But this is the film that brought all of those elements and all of those crowds together. This essentially is a crime movie that has a very mature story with complex characters, with this multitude of layers that is thematically rich, while at the same time he brings in these spectacular characters and allows the story to have these moments of intense spectacle, this kind of blockbuster filmmaking, and there's a fabulous balance of all those elements that mix so well together. And one of the elements where you can see that is that this film just feels much bigger than Batman Begins. That film was about the origin story of this emerging superhero, understanding his cause, what he is fighting for. This film is just so much bigger on a visual spectrum, on a scale spectrum, because Christopher Nolan inserted a ton of IMAX moments in this film, particularly for some of the big action set pieces that just look spectacular. I still remember going to see this film in a theater. I was 15 at the time, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing, not only because of the enormity of the scale of this film, but then what Christopher Nolan does with the story. And we start off with one of the greatest opening sequences of all time that is fabulous on every single technical element, but what it gives to the story is this fantastic world building that makes us understand where the world is at and where our characters are at. Those first initial moments are just so essential to what this story is going for, because what Christopher Nolan does here is essentially a three-way dance. We have the incorruptible in the Batman, we have the absolutely corrupt in Joker, and we have the man in the middle, the ideal hero in Harvey Dent. And the fantastic world building starts off right away with that opening bank heist sequence where we start to understand how society, how Gotham sees Batman. First and foremost, obviously, the criminals who are working with Joker, and you have that interaction with the bank teller and the reveal of Joker having been working with all those clown masks all along. We see how the police perceives Batman, and perhaps most importantly, how society sees Batman. We see all these criminals afraid of him, where a criminal doesn't even want to do business because the bat symbol is up there, and we see that he has inspired other people to become vigilantes. Some of them even take on the Batman persona itself. And while this is a twisting of what Batman's original intentions were when he wanted to go out and inspire people, it fully captures the rich themes of the film, where Batman is the embodiment of order and Joker is the embodiment of chaos. And that is captured beautifully in his introduction scene. He's just pure, unbridled chaos. He brings out the worst in people as he manipulates them and tells everyone he speaks to just everything they want to hear. He's just here to bring about the crumbling of functional society, and this to me is the most frightening Joker we have ever had on a movie screen, because Christopher Nolan and David S. Goyer, who wrote the script as well, along with Jonathan Nolan, they clearly understand what makes the Joker scary. It's the fact that we don't understand him. There is no plan, there is no reasoning, there is no logic to what he does, countering that to the fact that Batman's analysis of his enemies is always trying to understand them, see what logic there is behind their thought process and decision making. And when it comes to the Joker, there's none of that. He is the agent of chaos, and that is what makes him so frightening. And one of my favorite scenes that showcases just how frightening Joker is when he first meets all the mobsters of Gotham, where his sociopathic side is just fully showing to them. There's no emotion, there's no intimidation on his part. He's not angry when they mock him. They're just nothing. He's 100% committed to what he wants to do and how he's right about doing it. And one of the best parts of this film is that it proves the Joker right. He shows absolutely no intimidation, no fear, no emotion whatsoever, but he shows absolute resolve in his intentions. And that's exactly what makes him a great villain, is that he believes in something, he goes out to prove it throughout this film, and he is proven right about everything he said. This film is mature enough to ask these grand questions and give layered answers about it, but it's also not afraid of showing that this complete sociopath that has no good intentions, no good objectives about what he is actually trying to accomplish, and it proves him absolutely right by the end of the film. Even the multitude of fake stories he tells about his scars only make him more frightening. There's no reason, there's no logic. The fact that he can just come up with these scenarios on the spot, because you just know the Joker didn't write these down or thought about them all the way through. He just comes up with this. In essence, the Joker in The Dark Knight has the exact reverse arc that Bruce Wayne had in Batman Begins, where instead of being a source of inspiration and giving hope to the city, he incites chaos. He inspires fear. And at one point in this film, you realize he has inspired more fear in the people of Gotham. He's being so successful with this plan than Batman ever was in inspiring hope. And obviously, I've been talking so much about the Joker, you have to talk about Heath Ledger's performance. It's intense. It's absolutely transformative. You never see Heath Ledger for a second in this role. The fact that he committed so much to this role and what he does on screen, the little tweaks, his body language, his little licking of the lips, everything is designed intricately to make you fear and make you uncomfortable around him, and it's so successful. That Oscar win was absolutely deserved. In fact, it is such a great performance, it kind of overshadows every other great performance in this movie, particularly once again our lead Christian Bale as Bruce Wayne / the Batman. He once again plays with so many levels on this film and does such a great thing at bringing this character from those comic book pages into the real world. And while we will talk about more of the Batman and the Joker as these almost divine deities on the collision course against each other, I really love what this film does with Bruce Wayne and his personal struggle. I really love how the human side of Bruce takes hold of him throughout most of this film when it comes to his conflict, as he's still struggling with what Rachel told him at the end of Batman Begins, as he knows what she said to him is true, where he's come to this point where he has to separate himself from the Batman if he wants to be with her. And this puts like the mortality of Batman at the forefront, where it once again focuses on the dichotomy of who is Bruce Wayne and who is Batman. Bruce can't really have a life while Batman exists. And I love the contrast as the film begins that we have Harvey Dent, this brand new character on the film, who's presented as this shining light, this hopeful symbol that Gotham can trust in and give a face to. And while Harvey fully believes in what the Batman is doing, just perhaps not his methods, we have Bruce Wayne being unsure and distrustful of Harvey Dent. Beautifully captured in that first dinner scene when they first meet, and we have the famous saying that so immortalized this film. This scene does such a great job at capturing the moral compass of each of these two unique characters, the brokenness that each of each other have, those little imperfections, but it also gives Bruce a shift in perspective. Well, further along in the film, when we have the moment where Harvey outs himself as the Batman, we clearly see that he always understood what the Batman was meant to be. Batman was never meant to be this face, this hero. He was always meant to be something more, something to inspire. And Harvey Dent understood that. And I love how Bruce's arc in this film in many ways is to see that Harvey Dent can be even better than what he ever was for the city of Gotham. And the film is drowning in all these complex themes about trust and distrust, about gray morality, about right and wrong, and it analyzes all these strong moral compasses of each of these characters, where Batman, he is doing the right thing throughout the film. He is trying to save his city, he's trying to save the soul of Gotham. But at one point he has to cross a line. He has to become something, in part at least, that he never wants to become. Same thing happens to Harvey Dent. And so throughout the film, you have this immovable object meeting the irresistible force. And that is Batman coming face to face with the Joker. There's a great scene that is the fundraiser at Bruce's place that he's trying to help out Harvey Dent with. And that is a nice confrontation where we see that the Joker, he's a mastermind. He has something always up his sleeve, but he's not a fighter, clearly. If he comes one-on-one with the Batman, he's gonna lose. But we clearly see how Batman is at a psychological disadvantage, because the way he does things, the way he analyzes his adversaries, he can't do that with the Joker. There's just nothing to be gained from that. And I do actually love that from this scene onwards, it takes us a while to finally get the Batman and the Joker one-on-one again on a confrontation of some kind, because we have the city just steeped in chaos as the Joker throughout this film is slowly winning, and we see Batman losing and losing throughout the bulk of the film, leading up to that incredible parade scene that is so nerve-wracking. It works as a callback to the opening sequence, but it also highlights the masterful score of Hans Zimmer for this film, bringing in those strings that from this moment on, and actually from the beginning of the film onwards, even without us realizing, we know what this theme is. So as soon as it starts playing, it's like knowing there's a bomb somewhere in a room ready to explode, and we're just counting out the seconds until it does. And once again, the Joker is successful in this tactic, not necessarily at killing the mayor, but he finds ways of ensuing more chaos, more distrust from the people, on the police, on the DA that is Harvey Dent, and he starts to be successful in this crumbling of functional society, to the point where Harvey Dent himself, going through his arc, he starts to distrust the police himself even more, which in itself leads to that outing scene when Harvey Dent says that he is the Batman, and that leads to one of my favorite action sequences of all time in that police convoy action set piece that takes place in central Gotham, in that big avenue that they shot this on the streets of Chicago. And it's so fabulous to watch, and to go watch the behind the scenes making of part in the Blu-ray extras. It's perhaps my favorite set piece in the entire Dark Knight trilogy, where as soon as it begins, we're just waiting once again for that proverbial bomb to go off. It's intense, it's big, it's a spectacle to watch, but it's also personal, with all these different stages to it, as they go with the underpass, and then you have the truck sequence, then Batman comes in with the bike after the tumbler gets destroyed and damaged with no repair. And it also ends up having a really great reveal for the story, where Jim Gordon turns out to have been alive and his death was faked to try and capture the Joker, which he is captured, and we have the whole part of the plan to be captured kind of thing that honestly really works in this context, because the Joker has been set up throughout the film to always have a plan up his sleeve. I understand that these plots are usually very badly constructed, where they rely on a lot of coincidences and a lot of happenstance, but in this context it really works because of the groundwork that was laid up until this point. And we finally have the meeting of the minds when Joker is captured. And as soon as he's captured, it's once again one of those sequences where you're just seeing the intensity rise throughout, because he goes to his cell and he's unwavering, once again showing no emotion, showing nothing on his face, which is such a nice contrast to the Batman. Because while Batman has all these struggles that throughout the film he's trying to keep his identity a secret, as soon as we get Joker on the cell, we have the Prince analysis, and there's nothing. There's no identity to find. Almost like he has no weaknesses compared to the Batman, where we've just been exploiting his weaknesses throughout the film, and eventually it's going to be ultimately exploited. And that interrogation scene works so well because it is the first time we're seeing the Batman and the Joker meeting in this film one-on-one with no restrictions, no guests at a fundraiser, no Batman on the ground after being taken out because it crashed into a truck. Just the two of them, and the rich conversations that happen from that. They're broken reflections of one another. They are perfect adversaries, with the Joker being this perfect antithesis for the Batman, where he represents order and Joker represents chaos, and this whole thing turns out to be about Joker exploiting that one weakness that he's seen Batman to have. And this interrogation scene obviously leads to one of the most gut-wrenching sequences in the film, where we get another great reveal where Joker sends Batman to the wrong place. He wanted to save Rachel, but he's thrown at Harvey. Because again, Joker knows exactly what he's doing by saving Harvey Dent. He's looking at the forest, not just the trees. And we reach the point of no return, where once again, every sequence in this film just shows us that Joker wins, and he outsmarts every single person. The death of Rachel leads to Harvey Dent being overtaken with emotion, and that brings out the worst in him. The Joker fulfills his goal of corrupting the soul of Gotham. The supposed White Knight is no more. And the would-be corrupted has been absolutely corrupted from this moment on. But one of the reasons I feel Harvey Dent still works as he turns into Two-Face is that his resolve is still the same. It has always been the same throughout his film, and that is to take corruption out of the city. Only his methods really have changed. He has rescinded order from this point on and given in to chaos, which when you look at the whole thing just makes Joker Mad Plan so personal to what the character of Gotham is. He doesn't really get anything from destroying Gotham himself, but if he creates a monster that the city once believed in, that's really destroying that city. That's really taking everything away from the people of Gotham. And this goes hand in hand with Batman's core belief system, as throughout this film he has gained this belief and this trust in Harvey, which is why he takes the fall. That is a person, that is a human being that people can see themselves in. If the Joker is successful in turning him to a villain, there's no hope for Gotham. And I think that's what makes the ending of The Dark Knight so poetic, so beautiful, so potent, is that the only way for the Joker to not win is for the Batman to lose. And it was the Joker that machinated and manipulated his way for this to be the only way out. The way the orchestration of the Joker's plot in this film was so masterfully crafted is because there really is no other way for the Batman to be successful in his goal, if not to take this fall and become the proverbial villain for Gotham. The Dark Knight is as legendary as you've always heard, but it is not perfect. There are a few drawbacks. And one of those drawbacks is that I still don't care for Rachel Dawes. She's not a particularly well-written character, where she's more of an embodied representation of the vulnerabilities that Bruce Wayne and Harvey Dent share. The one distinct characteristic that makes them different from the Joker. She works thematically really well. She is something that defines two very different characters in a very unique way, but she doesn't really work by herself proper. Another issue I had with this film is that if you saw my Batman Begins review, I really don't like the fight sequences in that film. In this film, they're an upgrade, but they're still not quite good, as we now get quite a few wide shots, not too many cuts, but the choreography is still not being shown. And this is especially frustrating because we know there was choreography behind the scenes. They kind of invented this brand new martial art for the fight sequences in this film. And so we do get a bit of one-on-one combat, but it's still not all that impressive. It still doesn't have all that flair or flash to it. It's just an elbow and another elbow, and it's done. And I like seeing my Batman as this brutal, violent fighter. And we just don't see that in this film. My last issue with The Dark Knight, however, comes down to a preferential thing, as I love that final confrontation with the Joker and the Batman as Gotham stands on almost this proverbial edge where are the people going to prove they give into evil, they give into chaos, or are they gonna restore order? And we have the whole prisoner thing, which again thematically really rich, complex, really works. And we have this intense conversation between the two of them about essentially taken out of the Killing Joke, all it takes is one bad day, even though they don't specifically keep the lines. It's essentially coming to that same point Joker was trying to make. And again, the movie proves him right in essence, but I always wish that Joker and Batman were the big finale of the film. Maybe work in a way where we have Dent and Joker in the same place, even though they're trying to accomplish different things. I just think Dent was trying to get rid of other people before getting rid of the Joker. But to me, emotionally, thematically, the confrontation between Batman and the Joker is where the film peaks. And then we have the scene of Dent and Batman, and that is still really good because we also care for Jim Gordon and his son. We don't want to see him or his family in danger. But it just feels like an extra, it feels like a cherry on top of the cake, that final scene, and not the cake itself. So structurally, it's just something that I would rearrange. The Dark Knight is not only the film that birthed the living legend, essentially, that Christopher Nolan became, but it reinvented an entire genre from then on. It's an enthralling, ambitious crime epic that satisfies on a spectacle side, but is also gratifying in scope and in moral complexity. It revealed new layers about this world, about these characters, and about the thematic depths that the comic book genre could reach. Not quite perfect, but if this is a film that we all remember as one of the GOATs, it certainly has proven to deserve that place. I'm giving The Dark Knight an A. But those are only my thoughts on The Dark Knight. I want you now to start the conversation in the comments below. Your favorite parts, your least favorite parts, anything that I forgot to talk about, throw it all down there. Thank you so much for watching, for being with me on this journey to The Batman, and thank you to my channel members Bruna and Stuart for making this video possible. And remember that if you like movies and TV, this is the place to be, so consider clicking that subscribe button so you're aware of the final part of the Dark Knight trilogy review I've had of The Batman. And so until the next one, love each other and love the movies.